Hello students. In the earlier video, we have learnt about the hormones secreted by the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland. So in this video, let us study about the hormones secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Children, anterior lobe of the pituitary gland secretes a number of hormones, and all those hormones secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland are known as tropic hormones. So, tropic hormones are nothing but the hormones which are secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland are known as tropic hormones. Children, what is the meaning of tropic hormones? Children, these are the hormones which actually stimulate the other endocrine glands to secrete their respective hormones. Yes, children. So what is the definition of a tropic hormones? Tropic hormones are the hormones which actually stimulate. So they conduct the message, or they act as a chemical messenger to the other endocrine glands to secrete their respective hormones. So this can be one of the question asked for about 1 mark. Now let us learn the meaning of this definition more clearly. There is one of the hormones secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Fine, children. So we call that hormone as ACTH. Children, this is the abbreviated form of the hormone. So ACTH. A stands for adreno. C stands for cortico, and T stands for tropic, followed by H is the hormone. So one of the hormones secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland is nothing but the ACTH, children, which stands for adrenocorticotropic hormone. So when you write these words, I have seen many a times children writing it as a adrenal cortex. Children, you have to write as it is. It is adrenocorticotropic hormone. So within the word you have a clue that this is the tropic hormone which stimulates the adrenal cortex. To secrete its respective hormones, in the sense to secrete the glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, or a sex corticoids. Fine, children. So I think now you have understood the meaning of the word tropic hormone. Let me give you one more example. Fine. So there is a hormone which is also a tropic hormone known as a TSH. So T is thyroid, S stands for stimulating, followed by H is the hormone. So what is an expansion of TSH? TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Children, once again the TSH is a tropic hormone which stimulates the other endocrine gland. In the sense, TSH stimulates the thyroid gland to secrete the thyroxine and calcitonin. Fine, children. So I think now you are clear with the tropic hormone word. So tropic hormones are the hormones which stimulate the other endocrine glands to secrete their respective hormones. Fine, children. Hence, just now I said, all those hormones which are secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland are known as a tropic hormones. Fine, children. Now let us start with one more tropic hormone known as a growth hormone. So in a short form, we name this as a GH. So what is the function of growth hormone, children? The growth hormone helps in the, or you can say it stimulates the normal growth of the body. It stimulates the normal growth of the body. Children, recall the function of thyroxine. When I taught you the function of thyroxine, I had used the word general growth of the body. So in fact, the thyroxine helps in the general growth of the body. So you have to be very clear. So when you are answering about the thyroxine, you should answer it stimulates the general growth of the body. When you are answering about the growth hormone, you should say it helps in the normal growth of the body, or it stimulates the normal growth of the body. Now, what is the meaning of normal growth of the body, children? It refers to the elongation of bones. It refers to the elongation of bones, especially during the growing period. Fine. It refers to the building up of muscles, that is your muscular mass, building of your muscles. Fine, children. Whereas in case of a general growth of the body, some of the cells, they take the shape or take the form into the other cells. So what do you call it as a differentiation? So some of the cells, they start changing into the bone cells. Some cells start changing into the cartilage cells. What do we call it as a differentiation, or we name it as a general growth of the body. But here, growth hormone stimulates the normal growth of the body, which is pertaining to the height of the person, which is brought about due to the elongation of bones, along with the building up of your muscular mass. Children, in case if there is a hyposecretion of growth hormone in children. So this is the age where the bones elongate. So in case if there is a hyposecretion of a growth hormone in childhood or in children, the child starts developing a disorder, and that disorder, what do we call it as a dwarfism. That disorder, what do we call it as a dwarfism. Children, here you can find a picture of a person, right, who has a disorder known as a dwarfism. Okay, though he is fully matured, in the sense, even if he would have crossed the age of 25, 35, 45, even at the age of 50, the proportion of the body looks like a child. It It means though is fully developed. So though the person has matured, he is fully developed. The proportion of the body looks like a child. What is the meaning of proportion of the body looks like a child? The size of the head region, the size of the chest cavity, the size of the abdominal region. It looks like our primary school child, though he has crossed the age of 40 or 50. Is it clear, children? So, hyposecretion of growth hormone in the childhood results in the development of a disorder known as a dwarfism. Children, here we can name it as a dwarfism due to pituitary. So we call it as a pituitary dwarfism, because we have learned that even the thyroxine, whose hyposecretion also leads to dwarfism in case of a child suffering from cretinism. Okay, so what is the symptom of a dwarfism caused due to the pituitary? Here the elongation of bones is inhibited. So there is no elongation of bones, due to which, though the person is fully developed, the proportion of the body looks like a child. He still looks like a child, whereas head region, chest cavity, his arms, his legs, it looks like the size of a child. Fine, children? Yes. Now, if there is a hypersecretion of a growth hormone in the childhood, if there is a hypersecretion of growth hormone in childhood, here the growth hormone which is secreted in excess quantity, it brings about the elongation of the long bones. We know that the growth hormone stimulates the normal growth of the body, that is the elongation of the bones, due to which you can find that that particular child has the elongation of his longer bones. So what is a symptom? One of the symptoms, you will find the elongation of the long bones, that is the bones of his arms, bones of his legs, his rib cage. So all these longer bones, they start elongating beyond their normal size. In fact, here the person can attain the height more than 2.7 meters. So the height of the person will be more than the 2.7 meters. Children, here you can find in a picture how a person has a height which is more than the 2.7 meters. So we call this condition, we name this condition as a gigantism. So what do we name this condition as? This condition is said to be as gigantism, in the sense he looks like a giant. He has a giant body, and this disorder is known as a gigantism. So if there is a hypersecretion of a growth hormone in a childhood or in children, it leads to the elongation of long bones, due to which the person can reach the height above the 2.7 meters, and this disorder is known as a gigantism. Fine, children. Now, imagine if there is a hypersecretion of a hormone in an adult. So just now we were discussing about the children. If there is a hypersecretion of growth hormone in adults. So after he has completely grown up, okay, where his body has attained the normal size, if there is a hyper secretion of a growth hormone in adults, children, again a person starts showing the elongation of certain bones in his body. Fine. So what do we find? We find that the bones of his hands and feet elongate. Bones of hands and feet elongate. Right? And if you just look at his face, the facial bones also start showing the growth which is abnormal. Especially the jaw bones widen. So there is a extra growth of bones in the face, especially the facial bones. So there is an extra growth of bones in face. So you can find that there is an extra growth of bones in the face, right? Especially the jaw bones. There is an increase in the size of the jaw bones. You can find there is an increase in the size of the jaw bones, and you can find that his nose, the nose becomes large. The nose turns large, and you can also find that he has a thick lips. You can also find thick lips. So you can find that there is abnormal features or the facial bones which have grown abnormally. Right? So thus you can say that this disorder, we call this disorder as a acromegaly. Okay, children, acromegaly. So what is the acromegaly? Acromegaly is a disorder affecting the adults due to oversecretion or a hypersecretion of growth hormone in the adulthood. So what are the symptoms of acromegaly? You will find that the bones of the hands and feet elongate, which is abnormal. Sometimes you can also find the swelling of hands and feet. Along with that, especially the bones found in the face also have an abnormal growth. So you can find the jaw bones which are elongating, and the nose becomes large, and he has a thick lips. So we call this condition as a acromegaly. Fine, children. So this is about the disorders associated with growth hormone. Now let us study about the other tropic hormones secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Yes, just now I discussed about the ACTH, which stands for Adrenocorticotropic Hormone. So what is the function of adrenocorticotropic hormone? It regulates the activity of adrenal cortex, or in the simple words, It stimulates the adrenal cortex to secrete the mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids or sex corticoids. Fine. Then the other tropic hormone known as a TSH, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone. So the function of thyroid stimulating hormone, it regulates the functioning of thyroid gland, or you can say that it stimulates the thyroid gland. It stimulates the thyroid gland to secrete the thyroxine. Fine, children. Now let us learn about one more tropic hormone secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Fine. That is Gonadotropic Hormone. Which is also known as a gonadostimulating hormone. Fine, children. So in a short form we call it as a GTH. That is a gonadostimulating hormone or a gonadotropic hormone. Now, what do you mean by gonads? Children, gonads are nothing but our reproductive parts. So, males have a reproductive part known as a testes found in the males, and females have a ovaries. So these two reproductive parts are known as gonads. So we find the ovaries in the females, we find the testes in the males. So testes helps in the formation of sperms, whereas the ovaries help in the formation of ova, that is the egg. Fine, children. So what is the function of a gonadostimulating hormone? It actually regulates the activities of gonads, that is testes followed by ovaries. Children, gonadotropic hormones are of different kinds. So let us start with the first one. Children, prolactin. Already we are familiar with the word oxytocin. So prolactin is a hormone which is a type of a gonadotropic hormone secreted from the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland, and this prolactin stimulates the secretion of milk. It stimulates the secretion of milk from the mammary glands. So it stimulates the secretion of milk from the mammary glands, which is one of the type of gonadotropic hormone. Fine. The second one is known as a FSH. FSH. F stands for follicle. S stands for stimulating, and H stands for hormone. So what is the function of follicle stimulating hormone? I said It is a type of a gonadotropic hormone. So, follicle stimulating hormone in fact stimulates the testes. It stimulates the testes to produce sperms. So sperms are nothing but the male gametes. The male gametes which are produced in the testes. So what is the role of the follicle stimulating hormone? The follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the testes to produce sperms, which are the male gametes. So this process of producing sperms in the testes, we call it as a spermatogenesis. So what do we name it as? Spermatogenesis. Children, so within the word, there is a clue. Spermatogenesis. So what is the meaning of a spermatogenesis? It is a process of producing the sperms in the testes is known as a spermatogenesis. So you can write the function of FSH as it stimulates the spermatogenesis. Instead of saying the entire sentence that is helps in the production of sperms, you can just say it as it stimulates the spermatogenesis. In the same way, in case of a female, the FSH, in case of a female, it stimulates the production of ova. Ova means eggs. So eggs are produced in the ovaries. So it stimulates the ovaries to produce the eggs. So it stimulates the ovaries. It stimulates the ovaries to produce the female gamete known as ova or eggs. The singular form is ovum. Right? So this process of production of ova in the ovaries, we call it as a oogenesis. So what do we name it as? Oogenesis. So spermatogenesis is the production of sperms. Oogenesis is the production of the ovum or a eggs in case of a females. So what is the function of follicle stimulating hormone? It stimulates the spermatogenesis in males and oogenesis in females. Okay, children. Now, let us study about the last type of the gonadotropic hormone. Yes, the third type of the gonadotropic hormone is known as a LH. So, children, L stands for luteinizing hormone. Yes, children. So what is an expansion of LH? Here L stands for luteinizing hormone. Okay. So this is one more type of a hormone secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. So the luteinizing hormone in fact stimulates the secretion of the male hormone, in testes. Fine, children. And the male hormone is nothing but the testosterone. So we can say that the luteinizing hormone stimulates the secretion of testosterone in the testes. So very clearly you can write the function of FSH and LH. So FSH is related with the formation of male gamete followed by female gametes, that is sperms and ova, whereas luteinizing hormone is related with the secretion of hormones from those testes and ovaries. So what is the function of luteinizing hormone in the males? It helps in the secretion of testosterone from the testes. Then, in case of a female, the luteinizing hormone stimulates the secretion of progesterone. It stimulates the secretion of a hormone known as a progesterone from the structure known as a corpus luteum. So you can say that the luteinizing hormone stimulates the corpus luteum to secrete a female hormone known as a progesterone, which is produced in the ovary. Children, what is the meaning of a corpus luteum? Children, if you just recall about the corpus callosum, we learnt in the nervous system chapter. So corpus callosum is different from the corpus luteum, which can be expected for a difference. If you remember, corpus callosum is a sheet of nerve fibers which connects the right cerebrum to the left cerebrum. Fine, children, which helps in the conduction of impulses from the right cerebrum to the left cerebrum. But here, this is the corpus luteum. So, what is the meaning of a corpus luteum? In females, there are two ovaries. There are two ovaries in the pelvic region. Fine, children. So within these ovaries, there is a formation of ovum. There is a formation of ovum in these ovaries. So each ovary produces an ovum every alternate month. In the sense, if the right ovary produces an ovum in the month of January, and the left ovary will produce in the month of February. In the same way, again the right ovary will produce in the month of March, followed by the left ovary producing in the month of April. So thus you can say that each ovary produces an ovum every alternate month. Right? So within this ovary, within each ovary, when there is a formation of a ovum, and this ovum gets surrounded by a cellular layer. It gets surrounded by a cellular layer. Fine, children. So this is the ovum. So when there is a formation of ovum, so the ovum gets surrounded by a cellular layer, and the cellular layer is known as a follicle. So what is the meaning of a follicle? Follicle is a cellular layer that surrounds the growing ovum. So after few days, okay, the ovum enlarges, the size of the ovum enlarges. Fine. So when this ovum enlarges, so the follicle gets filled with the fluid. It gets filled with the fluid, and we call that follicle which is surrounding the mature ovum. The follicle which is surrounding the mature ovum, we call it as a Graafian follicle. So what do we name it as? We name that follicle as a Graafian follicle. So what is the meaning of a Graafian follicle? A Graafian follicle is a cellular layer that surrounds the mature ovum. So after some time the follicle ruptures. The Graafian follicle ruptures so that the ovum is released. The ovum is released from the Graafian follicle. Fine, children. So we call this rupturing of Graafian follicle to release the ovum as ovulation. So what is the meaning of ovulation? Ovulation is nothing but the rupturing of Graafian follicle, to release mature ovum. To release the mature ovum is known as a ovulation. Children, in fact, one more function of LH is it helps in the ovulation. So what is the meaning of ovulation? Ovulation is nothing but the rupturing of Graafian follicle to release the mature ovum. So once the ovulation occurs, this Graafian follicle, it changes into a yellow color mass. So the Graafian follicle, after releasing the ovum, it changes into a yellow color mass. And that yellow color mass, we call that yellow color mass as a corpus luteum. And this corpus luteum secretes the hormone that is a progesterone. So corpus luteum secretes the progesterone. Right? So and this progesterone is required for the fixing of the zygote in the wall of the uterus. After fertilization has occurred, if there is a fertilization, this progesterone helps in the implantation. What do we call it? As a fixation of the zygote in the wall of the uterus. Fine. So what is the meaning of a corpus luteum? After the ovulation, once the ovum is released, the Graafian follicle changes into a yellow color mass known as a corpus luteum, which secretes a hormone known as a progesterone. So what is the function of a luteinizing hormone? The luteinizing hormone stimulates the secretion of progesterone from the corpus luteum. It also stimulates the ovulation. Yes, children. So thus there are three different kinds of gonadotropic hormones known as a prolactin, followed by follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So let us quickly recall the hormones secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland. Fine. So the hormones secreted by the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland are known as a tropic hormones, which stimulate the other endocrine glands to secrete their respective hormones. So the different types of the tropic hormones are ACTH, that is adrenocorticotropic hormone, which regulates the activity of adrenal cortex. Thyroid stimulating hormone, which regulates the activity of a thyroid, which stimulates the thyroid to secrete the thyroxine, followed by growth hormone which helps in the normal growth of the body. So if there is an under secretion of a growth hormone in a child, he suffers from a disorder known as a dwarfism. Okay, so if there is a hyper secretion of a growth hormone in the child, again he suffers from a disorder known as a gigantism. Fine. So if there is an over secretion of a growth hormone in adults, he suffers from a disorder known as a acromegaly. Then, so there is one more type of a tropic hormone known as a gonadotropic hormone, which is of 3 different types, which regulates the activities of reproductive parts, that is a testes in males followed by ovaries in the females. The first one is the prolactin, which stimulates the secretion of milk, and the second one is the FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, which stimulates the spermatogenesis in males and oogenesis in females, followed by luteinizing hormone, which stimulates the testes to produce testosterone, which stimulates the corpus luteum to secrete progesterone in females. Children, with this we complete the pituitary gland. Okay, in fact I have completed with the endocrine system. So go through the textbook. If you have any doubt, you can ask me in the following class or in the next class. So thank you, children.